cool. I started YouTube, so just
I'm like, who the fuck is JD Dillard? So
I just said this. I thought the exact same thing. I don't know why he's remaking The Fly, but we'll cover that.
I did hear about Bernie.
See, I didn't hear. All of this is new to me, so I'm pretty excited.
You got to
Corey,
follow
I'm
different
good.
things on Twitter. So
I'd have to look at Twitter.
that's how I found out.
I'm busy. If things were on Reddit more, I would know all
Yeah.
about it. I think I just need to follow the right subreddits. That's my problem.
Could be. All right. Control, hit the thing, and the thing, and then I'll hit the thing. Let's put JD Dillard into IMDb and see if I can find out who the hell this is. Okay. JD Dillard is
I'm eagerly
a
waiting to figure out who the
writer.
fuck this guy is.
It looks like writer and director known for Slight, Judy Goose, and Mariah.
I've heard of none of those.
No. It's one of those things where director of a tiny movie is going to be given a great big movie for no particular reason.
Probably knows somebody.
Could. Oh wait, that's not directing credits. Directing. Oh no, they're the same. All right.
Still hasn't done shit.
Wrote and direct all of these. Yeah.
Looks like he's an independent filmmaker almost, and
Yeah.
and this is going to be his passover into doing something that's a little bit more mainstream.
Right. Well, they did that for Kong Skull Island, and I'm not sure how well that turned out.
Did you see it?
I did. I just saw it today.
Oh, you did? Okay. I'm not like a huge King Kong fan, but I'll probably eventually see it. Did you enjoy it?
I think it delivered what I expected of it.
Okay. A big monkey blowing shit up.
Big gorilla.
Sorry,
Yes.
They're one and the same to me.
No.
I
monkeys
know.
have tails.
You know, I hate to admit on the internet that I never thought about the fact that a monkey has a tail and a gorilla doesn't. I'm not drunk. I'm incredibly tired. I'm also an idiot. Because now that I think this through, I'm like, I fucking knew that. And they're definitely two very different things.
Oh, sleep deprived is almost as good as drunk.
Well,
So,
I didn't say I wasn't drinking. I just said I'm not
at least
drunk.
in terms of entertainment value.
That's true. I'm sure I'll be a barrel of laughs here.
All right.
All right. If you are ready, I'll start recording.
I'm ready.
Get this on the road. Welcome to episode 80 of the Podcast of Terror production of the Galactic Network. I'm your host, Matt Stein, and finally, not being a donkey dick anymore, Corey's back. Hi, Corey.
Hi. So a lot of people thought maybe I was traveling or that I was ill. The truth is that Matt finally got sick of my shit about Santa's sleigh, so he locked me up in a basement and just left it on repeat for 4 weeks. So I now love Goldberg.
Corey has been rehabilitated. Hey, I saw Goldberg wrestle for 30 seconds a couple weeks ago and won $30 on because of it. So just throw that out there. This week we were joined by fuck me in the ass. I accidentally caused it by slapping my keyboard. Damn it. Let's see if I can work magic here. All right, where'd you go?
I don't even know what's happening.
I hit the space bar on my keyboard, which stops recording.
Oh, okay.
I'm trying to figure out where the last thing I said, and then I'll... The fuck is so quiet right now. Hang on.
What the? God damn it. Hold on.
I missed something
just as
awesome.
well that you're not recording that. Yeah, where's my cat? Why doesn't this button work during the thing? There we go. Okay. I've got a do not disturb button on my phone, so
Oh,
I was getting a robocall from my kid's school. I have no idea what it's about.
I'm sure you'll find out.
Mm.
All right. I think I figured out what happened here. $30. And I'm just gonna hit record, and then we'll go on with the show. Took me 39 seconds to screw up, so you guys are in for a long night.
All right.
This week we are joined by co-host of the Geek Cinema Society, which can be found over on Blazing Caribou Studios. She claims she doesn't do anything else, but I beg to differ. Nicole Davis. Nicole, how are you?
Not too bad. I just watched our movie again today,
Should
and
probably.
so I'm in this very weird mindset.
Oh
So.
God, I have no doubt in my mind. Should probably also mention the fact that we were supposed to do this like almost 2 months ago, and then we had to reschedule. I think I was sick. We can blame it on me. And then,
you made me wait so long.
Wow. We have such a long waiting list of people that want to be on our podcast that this is just the way it is.
Except for me.
I'm
That's
surprised.
fucking except Corey. Who,
Did I fail to bribe you correctly? Was the hand job not good enough? What
I
happened?
want burritos. I was gonna say brownies, and I'm like, I actually prefer burritos to brownies. So
Burrito hand job.
yes, they marry the two, and
you get the tortilla and
Oh,
just not too much hot sauce.
oh God!
By the way,
I'm getting the
The highest compliment any hand job can get is good enough. That's pretty much it. That's the top of the line.
Oh man, there's just something weird about hand jobs. Sometimes they're sad.
They're never happy. It's never like a happy-go-lucky whistling walking down the street hand job. I mean, it is.
What?
That would be something to see two people walking down the street, one of them giving a hand job to the other
All I'm
one.
thinking of is that movie with Leonardo DiCaprio
Oh Jesus!
and sad Keanu.
I can't wait to see that. For more on this podcast, including show notes, content information, subscription links, you can go to gncast.com/pot. You can chat with us on our side channel about hand jobs over at gncast.com/sign up. And while you're there, you subscribe to our newsletter, which has nothing to do about hand jobs. We're going to spoil the shit. I forgot what year this movie's from. Anybody?
2009.
2009. We're going to do 2009's Korean movie Thirst, which was really fucking strange and full of sex scenes, but we'll get into that later. And I have a potty mouth, which is...
You do?
I do. It's nothing new if you've been here before, but if you're new, get out the swear jar, or you can do the drinking game where every time I swear, you can drink. You might be dead, but you know what you got yourself into. And because one of our listeners called me out on the fact that I never point out the beers that I'm drinking today, I'm drinking Off Color Brewing Dino S'mores.
Dino s'mores?
Yep, it is a s'mores flavored stout.
Why is it a dino?
I have no idea. It's just kind of it's got a mouse roasting a marshmallow on the bottle. All I know is that it's good as dick. It's better than a hand job.
Doesn't take much.
I was gonna say it's not saying a whole lot, but this is better than 10,000 hand jobs.
Wow. Okay, now that is saying a lot.
Yeah.
The refractory period
that's a
on
hand
that
job a
is
day
longer
for
than-
like how many years is that? Like 30
Well, okay,
years?
so you think about it. I got to get out a calculator. So if a hand job takes on average 5 minutes, okay, if she's good, it'll be 5 minutes. Now there's a 20-minute cooldown before it works again. So if you got how many 24 times 60, so there's 1,440 minutes in a day divided by 25. You can have 57.6 hand jobs in a day.
Wow.
So 10,000.
Would you even want
57.6.
any
Oh no,
after,
it'd
like,
be
the
shooting
fourth
dust.
hand job?
It'd be shooting dust by the 10th one. That would take 173.61 days to get 10,000 hand jobs if you were getting tugged off nonstop.
I remember once a year it's your birthday, so they light a candle and make sure to shoot it out.
Jesus Christ. Just, oh man. My dick hurts
We've
thinking about this.
already taken this straight down the toilet, guys.
Yep. By the
It's
time
gonna
we
be back and bring this show back up to the nice level of mediocrity that you're used to.
Right. All right. Now, what's Corey drinking there?
Iced tea.
I was gonna say root beer. Yeah, Corey doesn't drink.
For the connoisseur, Lipton iced tea.
Sweetened, unsweetened, hint of lemon, hint of
Totally
hand job.
unsweetened. Yeah, it's just dirty water. That's all I'm into.
Just you scoop water out of the toilet.
I'm a tea snob, and I would say categorically that Lipton is not tea. It is-
Exactly.
It is the sweepings off the floor of
Well,
the factory.
It's not nesty. That's the worst.
Jesus.
True. I myself have caffeine-free Diet Pepsi with Kraken rum in it. So
Oh. So you just put crack rocks in your Diet Pepsi?
release the Kraken. So
Oh, Kraken. I thought you said
Kraken.
crack and rum.
Crack
I'm
and
like,
rum.
no,
Just a shot
boy,
of, a
that'd
shot
be
of
something,
rum,
wouldn't it?
crack rock. Isn't that the
Relax you
sprinkle thing?
Relax you and wake you up simultaneously.
And also send you on some sort of murder spree.
Quite possibly.
Yeah. All right. Let's go ahead and cover some news. First up, we got some guy named JD Dillard, who we all had to look up. Actually, Nicole looked him up and told us about him. It appears he has not really done much, but he is currently in talks to direct the remake of The Fly. I think this is weird.
Why?
I don't know. I also thought it was really weird that The Fly hasn't been remade before.
The Fly that we remember, the Cronenberg version from the 80s itself, is a remake.
Yes, because the original's from 58, right?
I believe so.
Yeah.
So it has been remade before, and it seems like, okay, then of course they'll remake it again, and then they'll remake it again. I think that what was more interesting to me is that the day that this was announced this week, the same day they had announced that there's probably going to be either a remake or a prequel or something done with The Matrix, which is far more blasphemous to me.
It is not a remake or a reboot. It is more movies set in the Matrix universe.
So it's going to be like a Rogue One kind of thing?
I believe so.
They're expanding it now, although there's still rumors that the actor might be playing a young Morpheus. I don't know how to take any of that. The Matrix to me is a perfect film with two sequels that are easily ignored, and it's also a thing from a perfect moment in time where it just worked incredibly well for that, and now to try to do that 20 years later seems a little strange to me.
Yeah.
Are the Wachowskis involved at all?
No, that's the other rumor, is that so far they are not.
Damn it.
But why would they want to go back to it? You know, they're doing different things. Their Sense8 show, I think, is phenomenal on Netflix. Yeah. But be that as it may, the Fly is a little different. The Cronenberg movie did just an incredible job of updating what was the original story, of making it creepy. The Goldblum effect is the only way to really describe it. I mean, you cannot do better than Jeff Goldblum in that creepy role as the Brundlefly. I think that it's an idealized version of that film. Do I look forward to seeing someone else's take on The Fly? I don't know. I mean, it's not terribly different from what was the Metamorphosis, the movie, the short film about the guy who turned into a cockroach.
The Kafka story?
The Kafka story, correct. That's sort of what the theme of it is. And this director, JD Dillard, looks like he's done mostly his own work. He's a writer, director, producer. So he might have a vision for it that stands out, that does something new. Or it may be that they're looking at him and saying, well, you're the new upcoming director, so let's give you something that we own and see what you can do with it, and try to get you to that next level, which is kind of too bad, because it takes somebody who has their own ideas and their own voice, and it forces them into the cookie cutter world of what films already have as far as expectations. I'd rather see something original.
Well, I mean, if he can take it in as far of a different direction as Cronenberg did from the original, which I think had a French director, I want to say, or the director with a French name in any case. But if he's trying to go in the same vein, it's going to be hard to beat the gross out climax of the 1986 The Fly, because that's like legendary in its nausea generation and horrificness. So
I've never seen it. Throwing that out there now.
Oh,
I know.
well, maybe you should do it on your podcast.
I know. I should.
Here's a crazy idea. You do
I
a
know.
podcast about horror movies.
I wish there was a medium in which I could watch this movie and
I
provide.
wish there was a reason I would need to watch this.
I really remember liking the sequel more.
Oh my god, the sequel's horrible.
I know, but as
Eric
a kid,
Stoltz
it was
and
like
Daphne Zuniga.
Oh yeah, well that's probably part of it. Is Daphne Zuniga? Of course, I had a huge crush on her, but just in general, and Eric Stoltz was a badass at that point in time in my life. I don't know why I loved. They did something really cruel with a dog in it. Maybe that's part of it. But I just because it was the kids, I probably related to it a little bit more than I did the original, and it seemed to have moralistically. It tried to get to something better at the end than what the first one did. The first one was really about the becoming the monster and how much of a monster Goldblum's became. But it didn't make me sing songs from Earth Girls Are Easy, which is always a reason to watch Goldblum and David together.
God, I love that movie. I love it unabashedly.
I have not seen that movie in a very long time, but I've seen it. Let's move on to the next story. Unless you have anything else about The Fly you want to cover? Corey loves the sequels more than anything. He has a fanfic, The Fly 3, written under his bed.
It's true. It scars Nazi gremlins, actually.
Interesting. Flying Nazi gremlins, one would assume?
Oh, no. We're working on a podcast called Gremlins 3, what is it? Gremlins in Outer Space in Nazi Germany.
Ooh.
Yep.
Well, you've almost got that with Iron Sky, with the Nazis from space.
That's true. And then there's the zombie Nazis one, too.
Dead Snow.
Yeah. These are gremlins. So, and they fly. Well, there will be a troop of flying gremlins. We'll have to add that in.
Okay.
Corey, take a note.
Noted and forgotten.
No. The next story we have is famed horror artist Bernie Wrightston is dead at 68.
Oh.
Yeah, if you're not familiar with who Bernie is, he most notably to me, he did the animated film Heavy Metal, or he did a segment of it. Excuse me, the Captain Stern segment.
Right. Yeah. Not the segment you would expect after watching. We watched Heavy Metal for our podcast, and I would have thought it would be the segment with the crew in the B-42 bomber and World War II thing where they all turn into skeletons, but it's not. It's the goofy one with the captain on trial.
I have not seen Heavy Metal in a very, very long time. I remember watching Heavy Metal 2000 when I was a kid, thinking I was a badass, and I'm like, this is not good. I might just be
No.
Well, Heavy Metal 2000, I think, became more about Kevin Eastman's love for his wife and featuring her as much as possible.
How else is he gonna get some pussy?
Eastman does okay for himself. He's super fucking rich, but
wow,
He's got Ninja Turtle money.
Yeah, exactly.
True.
Bernie Wrightson, one of the co-creators of Swamp Thing, or at least was very well known for Swamp Thing through DC. Did a lot of horror comics at House of Mystery at DC. Did stuff for Marvel. Did stuff with Warren Publishing for a long number of years. But I wasn't as aware of some of the things he did. Like, he did a lot of the artwork for Stephen King's novels. Including things like the movie poster for Creepshow, but just in general, if you pick up things like The Stand or From a Buick or The Dark Tower 5, you'll find Wrightson's artwork in those books, which is one of those things that it's just kind of like, that's kind of amazing how around the world he went with his art. Plus, he worked on the Mary Shelley Frankenstein novel. He did 50 pen and ink illustrations over several years for that, which I remember seeing a lot in the comic stores. Because I'm a comic fan, because I hang out with a lot of comic artists and stuff, Wrightson's one of those names that is just like, everybody talks about him. Everybody loves him. He's been a huge influence on many different creators and just a brilliant person in general, but he's always come across as a really good guy. He's beloved not just because of his art, because of who he is. And he retired, I want to say about a year or so ago, because he was dealing with brain cancer. And
oh, that would explain it. I actually met him about a year and a half ago at Boston Comic-Con. And I had him sign it was actually the first comic book I ever read was the X-Men Heroes for Hope special, which was to raise money for the famine in Somalia at the time.
Yep.
And Bernie Wrightson illustrated the small section that Stephen King had written. It was sort of an all-star book that was put together where each author did a few pages and different artists did a few pages. And, I chatted with him for a couple minutes about that, and he did not look well at all. He looked much older than 67 at the time. So that's a shame. That's a shame.
Yeah.
Damn shame.
He did beautifully detailed work. I mean, I can't imagine how long it took him to do each illustration. There's just so much line work in every one. It's incredible.
Damn shame. And he did, he worked on films as a conceptual artist for Ghostbusters, The Faculty, Galaxy Quest, Spider-Man, Land of the Dead, and The Mist. So he's had a very large contribution to horror films on top of all of his artistry in horror comics and classic comics. So it's a big body of work to respect for this guy, and he'll definitely be missed.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Moving on to something less sad. NBC is set to premiere, they set the premiere date for their summer series, Midnight Texas. It'll be coming out Tuesday, July 25th in a 10 to 11 time slot, which just sounds kind of strange. But are either of you familiar with this at all?
No, never heard of it.
We talked about it when it got announced last year at some point. It is from Charlene Harris, who did the True Blood series. Mm-hmm. And one of I think the producers from Mr. Robot is exec producing this. But it doesn't sound too far off from the premise of True Blood. So it's based on the best-selling book series by Charlene Harris. Midnight Texas stars Francois Arnaud as Manfred, a charming, powerful psychic who can communicate with spirits and find safety at midnight, which is a town surrounding himself with both human and supernatural allies. So there is a local pawn shop owner. There is a witch who runs the Wiccan shop. There is a mysterious assassin. There is an angel who knows all the town's secrets. There is a wise vampire. There is somebody who can't resist the pull of the full moon, and an aspiring writer. It just sounds like such a
hot mess.
Yeah, it really sounds like every trope we can put into it. We're just gonna do them all over again. And I think that's kind of what True Blood became as it went along. Is like True Blood started out as a series about a town with vampires, and there was a psychic in the lead part, but then they started involving every other, horror genre trope into it. And it sounds like that's the starting place for this. And it's so familiar and it's so overplayed. And it's funny to me that she's got her True Blood series, and then she's apparently got this other book series that sounds just like True Blood. That, well, I guess as an author, that's what you do, is you just hedge your bets. You just keep writing the same kind of stuff over and over again and hope that if it takes off for one audience, then they'll keep buying your other stuff too.
Mm-hmm. Well, who knows how much money she made off of that? So the residuals will keep her going until she'll keep her heirs going for years to come.
I venture this lasts one season tops.
Yeah, I don't know how many people want to see True Blood that's made for TV as opposed to part of what set it apart on HBO was all the sex and hyperviolence and stuff that they got to do because it was an HBO series. But again, NBC.
I can't argue with the sex in that series. That's
But NBC
It's
did
pretty good.
Hannibal, and that was much darker than what we expected from them when it came out. And it would be nice if they put that same effort into this. It just seems like, I mean, my expectations are not high because I expect it's going to be kind of the silliness of what True Blood was, which I did it at segment on Elts Nerds, or probably the show that was pre Elts Nerds, called I Ain't Got Time to TV, where I watched the first episode of the show and then the last episode of the show and just kind of decided how it went.
Yeah, you kind of missed a lot.
Oh yeah, but that's the whole point of the segment. It's just to be an asshole.
Right.
It seemed like a pretty silly show. It didn't seem to be trying to take itself seriously, which is not bad. It's just that it's a different kind of horror thing than what we usually watch on here. Although today is going to be a test.
No, it's a silly show that knows it's a silly show.
Yeah. And it was popular for a number of seasons. So maybe this will be something that catches people's attention again. It's just like, I've seen several shows lately that have had angels involved. Lucifer is on Fox right now. Constantine, I think, had one before that on NBC. NBC keeps trying shows like this and they keep not working out. None of them are proving to be very popular on regular broadcast television at the moment. They seem to all struggle. So
might as well
just
keep trying
that same well. Yeah. At least it's not another fucking CSI or Criminal Intent or whatever.
Whatever, man. NCIS, SVU, CSI. Those are always on in my house. Not by my choice. It's not cool. It's not cool. Yeah. Let's move on to something that is cool. Stupid fucking Midnight Texas. A fan has made a miniature version of Derry, Maine, and it's actually creepy how detailed this thing is. If you're not familiar, Derry, Maine is the setting for the movie It. And if you're listening to this podcast and you don't know that, I don't need to finish that sentence.
No, it's the setting for a bunch of Stephen King books.
Is it really? See, I know not a ton about Stephen King, but I know enough. I didn't know there was multiple stuff. Now Ashley's in our chat. I'm curious if Derry, Maine is a real place, or it's a real place with a different name for his books.
I believe so.
I think so too, but
I'm a New Englander, so it sure sounds familiar. If you give me 2 seconds, I can use this magic device in front of me to see.
Wait. You have a box in front of you that you can type questions into, and then it gives you answers?
Amazing.
Holy fuck, how did I not know about this thing? I don't
believe it.
I'm trying to see if there's
nope, fictional town.
It is fictional town. Okay.
But it's based around.
Sure, it certainly sounds like the name of a Maine town.
Yes.
And it's based around the same. Conceptually, he's had a lot of his stories go through Derry, Maine. I mean, Stephen King stories, most of them do interconnect in some way. We used to, when I worked at a bookstore years ago, there was books that were sort of annotations about how the different characters crossed over and where you would find things like where Reynold Flag would show up. And even if you look at things like not Creepshow, but the other one that Stephen King did an anthology called Black Cat, I think, that was several short stories.
Cat's Eye?
Cat's Eye, that's it. Yeah, James Woods and Drew Barrymore all doing short films. And they had some of the characters kind of show up in the opening of it. They had Cujo. I think they did a few other things that were in there. It was cute. It was kind of silly, but it kind of shows like Stephen King's stories have gone through so many different ideas and stuff and how they all can tie together. And since It is getting made into a film next year, this year, September, and Dark Tower, I think, has got something coming up, the movie / TV series that they're trying to work on for that. This is a pretty spectacular visual to kind of get together. I think some of the other things like The Body maybe come through this, which was Stand By Me. I'm trying to remember what else would have shown up in here, but this is just beautiful.
I think like Needful Things.
Yeah.
Either in Derry or mentions Derry, certainly.
Yeah, and this is kind of like it looks like it was a sort of old style a vanity, or it's something that used to hold maybe a record player or something. It's just got this back plate to it that has been painted to look like a skyline, and then the top of it is all the town, and then you open up the doors for it underneath, and it's the sewers that you would see Pennywise hanging out in it. And it's just phenomenal. It's one of those things that we're not going to be able to do it justice, so we'll have the link in the show notes. But if you get a chance, you should definitely check this out.
Wow. Yeah, that's pretty amazing. I really like she's got like some sort of carved resin to show the water flowing down into the sewers. So,
Yeah, it's
pretty cool.
Pretty damn good. Oh, whoever made this. Nice work. Nice work. That's going to do it for news this week. Now we're going to get into this movie.
Well, that tells you all you need to know about how Matt felt about it.
There's so many sex scenes, but I will let.
And that's a bad thing? What happened?
When they're uncomfortable, yes. These are uncomfortable.
Which I grant you most of them are.
Oh, that's totally true. I'll give you that.
Well, let's start with the fact that the main character from this is a priest.
Yes.
Yes.
And the priest is having some sort of crisis of faith and volunteers himself basically to try to help cure a disease that is going around, the Emmanuel virus.
Yes.
I think it would. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And in doing so, he contracts the virus, but he gets a blood transfusion, which seemingly cures him of it and makes him better than he was before, makes him healthier than he was before. So everyone starts seeing him as sort of this miracle that happened in the fact that he survived this virus, and all these people who are hoping to see the entire thing wiped out are looking to him as a kind of savior, which you would think would be a bigger part of the movie than what it turns out to be.
Yeah, it's almost incidental. There's when he goes to the facility in Africa that's researching the Emmanuel virus and volunteers for this vaccine experiment. And when he gets back to Korea, there's this encampment outside I guess it's a monastery, where he's been living, and it's almost like a cult has sprung up around his miraculous recovery, and they believe that if he prays for them, that he can heal people. So, and coincidentally, people he has prayed for, some of them have gotten better, but it's been a purely psychological effect. So,
but that's not what the movie's about.
No, it's not. That's like
sort of
5 minutes.
Yeah, that leads into what happens to him, which is in getting the treatment and getting the blood transfusion, is our priest friend becomes a vampire.
Yep.
And that's sort of what the movie is about.
Yes. What happens when a priest becomes a vampire?
And
he
is going
develops
through
not just an appetite for blood, but sort of all appetites of the flesh.
Right. And that kind of is a thing that I see explored sometimes with vampirism films, or Buffy. They used to do it a lot, which is when you become a vampire, does it fundamentally change who you are? Do you become less human, not just because of your desire for blood, but does it do something to your soul that you start to become more debaucherous? That you become more evil? That you don't care about the laws of the living anymore? Do you start to relish in torture of other people? And that's sort of the thing with this, is that he's already having a crisis of conscience in his place in the priesthood as it is, but he definitely starts developing a taste for doing things that are wrong and follows down a worse path as he goes along. But it doesn't seem completely alien, other than the fact that he's developed this need for blood, so he's already having to compromise his morals to get it. But he doesn't become so compromised that he just like willy-nilly is going out and killing people.
Right. No, he tries very hard to get it without killing anyone.
Yeah, and that
Through various
that
means.
But it is a question of, I'm a vampire now. Am I still able to be a good person or not? And that is his journey, which I found interesting about the film. But he's taken into some very bad places because of part of what it leads him to, which is he finds some friends that he knew when he was growing up as a boy and sort of befriends them again and builds an obsession with a young girl that is now married to his friend.
She's not a young girl, young woman.
Well, yeah, she was a young girl when they knew each other before.
Yes.
Sorry. And but she's married to his friend and takes care of his friend because his friend is sick too, I think I remember.
Right. He's has esophageal cancer.
Right. And she's his wife, but she's kind of like the slave to his needs and to the family's needs. And she's in a very abusive relationship with him, based more around his mother than anything, but he's not great either.
Right. That's a very common trope in Korean media of the evil mother-in-law who forces her daughter-in-law to be like the slave for the family. So
yeah,
it's like Cinderella times 1,000.
Yeah. But in this case, the priest becomes obsessed with her and they start to have an affair, and that builds into him doing more and more things to compromise moralistically where he starts out at.
Right.
Such a great movie. I think I personally would have liked this movie more had there like, and I get the whole point of like now he's really into like everything that he couldn't do as a priest is now like what he's doing, but it's I just like there's all these weird uncomfortable sex scenes and it's like just it made me just not want to watch the movie anymore. And unfortunately, like that's all that I really recall from the movie is the sex scenes, and like the story itself is not terrible. It's just you make it weird. And I know it's like I obviously don't mind sex scenes.
I'd have thought you'd be into weird sex scenes, Matt. I mean, geez.
To an extent. There was no horses involved, and I really wanted at least a horse. Yeah, it was.
There's at least one good sex scene in it, though. I mean, yes, most of them are uncomfortable. One of them's played for humor. Definitely.
And that's the thing. I remember at one point wondering, like, is it supposed to be funny or not? And like, are they all
the scene where they, at one point they finally, spoilers, they do away with the woman's husband.
Yeah.
And they both feel terribly, terribly guilty about it. So
it
the
becomes
next
sort of a
time they
telltale
try to have sex, they imagine he's between them. And they drowned him to kill him. So they imagine that he's soaking wet in between them. So when every time there's thrusting involved, there's just this squish and he's sitting there with this dopey, the husband's lying there with this dopey grin on his face the whole time. And they're just sort of having sex around him. So
through him. He's definitely between them.
Yes.
So every
Very
time
much
the
so.
priest who's on top is thrusting, and the woman is underneath, the bloated, wet corpse of her husband is between them, and he's the one that's getting thrusted. It is a weird thing. And it's a movie that goes through some weird things. But that was like, and the amount of time that they spent concentrating on that just felt forever. Like this does not feel like a short movie, and that's part of it too. Is it just seems to go on and on and on.
Yeah, Park Chan-wook is not one to shy away from uncomfortable sequences. He's not one to shy away from extended sex sequences. He's not one to shy away from complicated morality.
This movie was also, was it the first Korean film to have full frontal male nudity?
It was not the first one. There were a couple before, but I think it was the biggest one that was done. It was
So
the
to
first
speak.
major movie that had full frontal male nudity in it. So there was some controversy in that. The poster was actually banned initially. The one with it's a black background. You see the priest, played by Sung Kang Ho, basically on top of the woman, who is played by Kim Ok Bin, and she's like strangling him as she's underneath him. And in the band poster, you can see her legs to either side of his head, and it looks almost like bat wings. That's actually the Korean title of the movie is Bakjui, which means the bat. But in the Korean version of the poster, they just black out the space where her legs are, so you just see her strangling him underneath. And so that was okay, but apparently seeing a priest in a sexual context was absolutely not allowed.
Yeah, and I've seen the poster done where it's flipped over, where she's up top and he's down underneath as well. Because it's two stories. I mean, as much as it is the priest story and as much as we focused on him, she becomes a very important part of this, and her story, I think, is just as compelling as his, but she goes through some pretty drastic changes as it goes along. She comes from being a very sympathetic person at first, because of the fact, like you were saying, the wicked stepmother or mother-in-law,
Right.
who's got her being subservient to her husband's needs, everything else. She's just kind of walking around just sort of dead most of the time. She just has no life, no zeal for life at all. And it's during her affair with the priest that she starts to come out of her shell more. But then she starts to go to very dark places because she realizes now that she's got hope, she wants to change things. She wants to get rid of her husband. So she manipulates the priest into helping her kill him by acting as though she's abused in a physical abuse way, as opposed to just the mental and emotional abuse that she's been suffering.
Right.
And that leads him to help her kill him by drowning him in the lake. And then she just continues down that path until we get to a point where she essentially gets embraced. And then it gets way crazy.
Yes. That's true. So
I'm not going to get in your way of your discussion of this. So,
well, I mean, I can tell you that, you know, my boyfriend has watched this with me a couple of times, and he doesn't like it because he thinks that the turn in her personality is too big between when she is living her sort of muted life as a human and when she becomes a vampire. He thinks she kind of goes around the bend too far, too fast. And
that's sort of what I was talking about earlier. That's what I meant by...
Sorry, go ahead.
That's what I meant by, does turning into a vampire make you... Does it derail your humanity completely? Does it turn you into an actual evil creature or not? And with the priest, you don't see that to the same degree. But with her, when she becomes a vampire, she changes drastically. But at the end of the film, we see almost as a last resort of like, okay, my life is definitely over now. That moment of sudden regret. But she really does take to like, I'm immortal now. There's nothing that holds me back from being who I want to be or doing what I want to do. And so she just she goes balls out and just like doesn't give a fuck about anybody. And it's pretty horrifying because she becomes like the monster that he's trying to keep himself from being. She fully embraces it.
Right. No, but I mean, I think I don't think it's as big of a stretch. I think the turning into a vampire sort of amplifies certain things that are already inside the person. But, because she had already there were a couple of things she was doing to sort of keep her sanity in this household where she really doesn't like her husband and she really doesn't like her mother-in-law. And she would go running in the middle of the night. She'd walk out the front of, they live above a hanbok shop that they run. The hanbok is the traditional Korean national dress. And she would go out in the middle of the night and go run in her bare feet. Just kind of run out all her frustration. But she would also sometimes take her thread snips, and as her husband was snoring, would sort of just make motions as if she was going to drive those thread scissors into the back of his throat while his mouth's hanging open. So, I mean, she's not entirely stable to start with. And she also knew there were good things about her family as well. She, her husband, she was injuring herself with the thread snips from time to time as part of keeping herself together. And he thought that it was the mental patients at the hospital she was volunteering at who were hurting her. And the husband was actually kind of taking care of her and concerned about her. And then one night she also overhears the mother-in-law talking about how she thinks her daughter-in-law is actually a really good person at heart and she's going to leave her the hanbok shop when she dies. So Taeju is the name of the wife, the character, and Taeju knows that her mother-in-law and her husband are not all bad. And she's already doing some nutty things. So when she turns, she just kind of gets turned up to 11. And becomes conscienceless, or at least very nearly so. She's like, does the fox feel guilty for killing the chicken? So why should I feel guilty for killing humans for my food? Whereas the priest is still trying very hard not to kill people.
And part of that too is that she basically asks him, or she allows him the ability to kill her. When he confronts her, when he realizes that she manipulated him into helping kill her husband, and he's just so pissed off, and she just basically says, well, then kill me then. And he does, but it's his, not even necessarily guilt. It's probably just the fact that he can't live with the fact of what he's become already, that he brings her back, that after he's killed her, he decides to then turn her into a vampire instead. And so when she comes back to life, everything that she does at that point is completely on him. He's amplifies what he's already done of like, I've allowed myself to do terrible things because of my disease for one, but then I allowed myself to do terrible things because of the fact that I love this woman. But then he still brings her back, and she does even worse things. She's way worse than he could have ever imagined himself to be. He thinks she's going to be like him, and she's not.
Right.
And so that makes the confrontation happen, where, oh man, the scene at the end with the friends visiting the family, where the mother is now in a semi-catatonic state, but recognizes what's going on, recognizes that they are not human, recognizes that they killed her son. She manages to signal the friends that are over there playing cards with them and lets them know. And then it's immediately like, well, now we got to kill y'all. So
right.
We're not going to be nice about it either.
Mahjong crew.
Right.
Come over every Wednesday. So it's the son's boss, and then he works at a dam for some reason. And so his boss, like the manager at the dam and the head of security at the dam, and then the manager's wife all come over every Wednesday to play mahjong. And yeah, so when they come over after the son has died to kind of comfort what they think is comforting the mother and the wife, the mother signals them, and somehow through this very elaborate sequence of her writing, Korean lettering with one finger on her chair, they somehow extrapolate that to these two people killed my son. And so they decide, well, these guys have to die. And the priest, I think, goes out, leaves the room. So he leaves it to Taeju to kill them for him because he can't bring himself to do it. But he allows it by leaving. He doesn't try to save them except for Evelyn at the end, I think.
Yeah, it becomes so just not even in denial, just like I can't control anything. He sort of goes into her role of she's got all the power and he's just kind of wandering through because he doesn't know how to disallow it at this point, and it's practically the what she started at is that she's doing all these things that is making his life miserable, but he can't stop himself from letting her. And it's, oh man, at that point in time though, he does start to put forth an effort. They had gone through, I think we missed the point where they fought on the rooftops, where they're an actually really cool vampire fight between the two of them, where he's trying to convince her that she can't be this way, and she's like, why would I not be this way? Why are you not this way?
Right. Yeah.
But he starts to realize that he has to put an end to it. And he's had a couple of moments like this where he's tried to pull back his humanity, or at least make up for some of the things he's done. Like, he did not embrace the priest that was his mentor when he found out that he was a vampire, who just wanted his eyes to work again before he died. He refused that. That's why he left the monastery. He goes and pretends to rape a girl where all the people who have been worshiping are at, to get them to no longer look at him like a savior. He does these things to try to break away from being looked at as this hero, because he doesn't see himself as a hero. But in the end, he realizes that he has to stop her and he has to stop his own existence. Right.
Yeah, I mean, when he first discovers what he is, when he first realizes that he's a vampire, he's, he accidentally gets someone's blood on him while he's giving last rites, and licks his thumb and realizes that has healed part of the virus blisters that have reappeared on his face. And the minute he realizes what he is, he throws himself out a window.
I mean, by the way, because that's what you do when you work at a hospital, is you get somebody's blood on you and you just lick it off just casually.
Yeah.
That's what I do.
Throws himself out the window and lands on a car, about 3 or 4 stories below. And then after about 10 seconds, gets up, rolls off the car, walks away. So he realizes that's not going to work for him. And he spends the rest of the time trying to kind of come to terms with being a vampire and trying to be the least damaging vampire he can be, I think. And that's why he won't turn the old priest who wants his eyesight restored. And he tries not to turn Taeju for a long time, but after he kills her, he's so regretful that he does. So, but I mean, I don't know, and at the end where they kill the mahjong crowd, he kind of takes the wife of the dam manager, he puts her in a separate room, and he lets Taeju kill the 2 men, but then he, takes the woman, and he's like, well, tells Taeju, well, you had your fill, so he takes the woman off, and there's an extended edition apparently that's available only in Korea, where some of the scenes are lengthened. There's a little more about the police investigation into the drowning. There's more after Taeju after her husband dies, she has sex with the dam manager, and I guess he offers her money and then assaults her, and then the priest throws the old priest's body over a cliff by the ocean, which is the last thing he wanted to see before he died was the sunrise over the ocean. And the last thing is that the priest Sang-hyun spares the wife of the dam manager. He fakes biting her. And in the extended edition, you see her get up, look in the mirror, wipe off the blood that's on her neck, and walk away. So I kind of wish they had left that in the shorter version and made it very clear that Evelyn doesn't die.
I was pretty sure that she didn't die. And from the version I saw, I was pretty certain that she didn't die, but it seemed like he had to let her kill the other two because he knew that he couldn't fight her, he couldn't defeat her. So the best he could do was save one person out of the three, but he knew that he wasn't going to be able to get them all out of there.
Right.
It seemed that he was resigned to, some of these people are going to die. If I can save one, that will at least mean something. But he was doing everything he could to make it so that she would still trust him, because I think at that point in time he realized that he was going to have to destroy them both.
Right. That's true. It's true. And that's what happens in the end. So, which I think is, I mean, Matt, what did you think of that last sequence where he drives them out by the ocean?
Well, it wasn't a sex scene, so it's got that going for it.
You and your aversion to weird sex scenes. I don't know what's the matter with you.
Let's get a strange boner in my living room by myself. I mean, I didn't think it was bad. It didn't move me or anything, but there were things that this movie did really good. And honestly, in listening to you two talk, because I haven't had a ton to say, it gives me a better appreciation for the movie itself. I honestly got hung up on these weird sex scenes, and it just was so, and you do that really well, as you always finally tell these deep meanings, and I appreciate that, because everything is face value with me. So, I actually, part of me actually wants to go back and rewatch this movie. So thanks.
When I was a kid, Showtime used to play this movie all the time late at night called Stealing Heaven, which is about a priest who winds up having an affair with some woman. And I watched that thing all the time because the chick was really hot, first of all. But just in general, that was around the time that I was considering going in the priesthood too. And it was a nice little bit of taboo in the late night. And that sort of reminded me, or this movie sort of reminded me of that. And it had been a long time since I even thought about that film. And it's weird because it is a movie where a priest just basically gives up all the details of being a priest. Part of it is circumstance because of what kind of creature he becomes, but part of it also is just because I don't think he ever really felt right in the priesthood. He starts out, and I think the very beginning, confessing to the other priest that he just doesn't feel right. He doesn't feel like this is where he belongs.
I think what it is he doesn't feel like he's doing as much good as he could where he is. I mean, he's working as the chaplain at a hospital, basically giving people the last rites and trying to comfort them in extremis. And he tells the old priest, I don't feel like I'm accomplishing anything, and I don't know about watching these people die anymore. It's really difficult, and I'm not sure what good I'm doing. And so he really wants to go off to the Emmanuel Clinic in Africa. He'd heard about this mission in Africa and wanted to be of service. And I think one of the reasons that he volunteers there is they say that the virus does not affect Africans. It's only infected Caucasians and Asians.
Right.
So that's one of the reasons that he volunteers for it. But you know, the people at the clinic make him record a statement on video as to why he's doing it, because they show him a slideshow and they're like, this is how horrible it is. This is all the blisters you develop, and then it becomes internal, and then you rupture your internal organs, and there's blood everywhere, and it's awful. And, you know, are you doing this just for martyrdom or dramatic suicide? You know, are you doing it because you feel like this is the only way you can get God to listen to you? And he tells him in English, he tells the doctor at the clinic, he says, you know, I believe God hears my prayers just fine. And then he's like, no, you look into the camera. And we don't get to see what he actually says to the camera. But I guess he says something convincing enough for the doctor there. But I mean, he becomes, because of what he becomes, because of the blood transfusion, he becomes a vampire. And I mean, I think I love that part, that he becomes a vampire completely indirectly. You know, somehow somebody donated a pint of blood to this clinic that infects him with vampirism. And we don't know who it was. We don't know why. And I think that's unique to vampire movies. I've never seen anybody become a vampire kind of by accident.
And have it not explained at all about, we get no explanation about where the vampirism comes from in this. We get no follow-up, like the hierarchy of vampires. It's all just like, yeah, just through this weird transfusion thing, I became a vampire, and then it becomes a vampire story outside of all other vampire stories. Right.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the reasons I really like it. I think it's different among vampire movies. I mean, it's certainly not the first vampire movie to bring a lot of sex into it, because I think in a lot of ways, most vampire movies, there's something inherently sexual about it. You know, you're sucking on people for your sustenance and pleasure, and you know, there's some obvious parallels going on.
I mean, the whole Dracula thing is gothic romance and seduction.
Right. And you get to live forever. So, you know, hey, there's that. But I mean, this is blended with the central part of the book or the central part of the movie of Teju's life, where she's abandoned to this woman, married to a sickly son, runs a shop with her mother-in-law to support the son, has an affair with a childhood friend of her husband's, and conspires to murder the husband. And the wife and the lover sort of slide into madness. It's all from a book by Émile Zola called Thérèse Raquin. This is a French novel. And so this is an adaptation of it, turning it into a Korean vampire story, which I think is kind of amazing. You know, and this, I'm not sure if this is the first adaptation by the director, Park Chan-wook, but he went on later to adapt another story. He adapted Fingersmith into the movie from last year called The Handmaiden, which is an absolutely gorgeous movie. It's the same cinematographer who did this movie. And he's just got this knack, I think, for making these stories really fit the culture. It doesn't seem like a transplanted story. It seems like one that's organically his own.
I didn't realize he was the guy who did Snowpiercer as well.
No, Snowpiercer is Bong Joon-ho.
Oh, then what am I looking at?
but
Park Chan-wook.
Park Chan-wook did Old Boy, Lady Vengeance, Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance.
He was the producer on Snowpiercer. That's what it is. Okay.
Oh, okay. Yeah. And he did Stoker in English, which is a really interesting movie. But I mean, there's, it's also interesting because there's no native vampire lore in Korea. The closest thing they have to a vampire in East Asia in their mythology is the Chinese sort of the hopping vampire, they call it.
Hopping pee-pee vampires, yes.
Yes. And really it's almost a cross between a ghost and a zombie and a vampire. It's this thing called a jiangxi, which hops after you. It's something that is undead. It comes after you and tries to absorb your ki, absorbs your life essence to sustain itself. But from what I understand, it doesn't create more by doing so. It's just killing people and kind of like sucking out their life force to survive. And that's the closest it gets to vampire stories in East Asia. So, this is a full-on bringing in the European idea of the vampire and all the, aversion to daylight, the need for blood to survive, the ability to make new ones. It leaves out the aversion to crosses and crucifixes, as it's a priest who's been changed, and he's around that sort of thing all the time. But I just kind of think it's a fascinating part of vampire lore, and there's just, I do think that the movie is a little overly long. They could trim it back. I suppose this is going to sound pervy, but I like the weird sex scenes. Partly because they serve a narrative purpose. For the most part, the first time it's showing the intense attraction that he feels for her, and they're being pulled into an affair, and she's acting out and finally telling him, the whole time she's talking about how much she hates her life and hates being married to this guy and having this woman as mother-in-law and all these how terrible her life is. And at the end, where they're trying to have sex and they're both seeing the ex-husband in between them, so you're seeing their guilt manifested. And the middle, the middle is weird because they're doing it in a hospital room next to a comatose guy. There's a curtain in between them, but I mean that particular sex scene, that's actually they're having good sex there. It's the kind where the woman cries at the end and you hold each other for a long time because you can't let go yet. So, it's this sort of, it's the apex of the movie, really. It's the happiest both of them will ever be. And so in that sense, it also serves a purpose because it's all downhill from there.
Yeah, it really drops. And I agree. I didn't think the sex scenes were out of hand. I didn't think that they weren't against the nature of what you're expecting from these two characters. It made sense in the context of how they were used. It was weird having the dead guy between them, but that was also perfect for what that scene was supposed to represent. As creepy as it was, and as long as it seemed to last, they just really belted her over the head with that. Right. But it made sense for the context. Right.
And I mean, kudos to Shin Ha-kyun, who plays Kang-woo, the husband, for just being able to lie there with this goofy smile on his face the whole time while they're sort of humping around him.
I mean, I don't want to tell you how my O-face looks, but it's similar.
On the note of Corey's O-face, do you guys want to rank this? I give Corey's O-face an 8 of 8.
We're out of 8 now?
No. Just Corey's O phase is an out of 8.
Which don't let Matt fool you. It's 2 4s. It's just done twice.
We're gonna rate the movie in a 3-tier scale using a penis reference. Nicole, as our guest, you get to go first. The first category is the feature, the story, if you will, on a 0 to 5 scale.
Well, I mean, the story is not entirely original. Obviously, it's an adaptation of a book. But how it was brought into, how the vampire story was added and how it's brought into the culture, I thought was really interesting. The acting, I think, is great all around. Great performances from everyone. So I guess I would give it like a 3.5.
All right, Corey.
I would definitely go 3.5 on this. I think that even though it's a vampire story at heart, there's so many different things that it does, that it touches on. It pulls in from different sources, like the idea of the body is sort of a telltale heart throwback. There's a lot of things that it brings together and makes it feel more original in the way that it combines them. And the acting was quite good.
I'm giving it a 2 because it wasn't horrible. Just sex scenes made me a little uncomfortable.
Says the guy who created the FAP scale.
It's a dick
You're just
joke.
going to have to get over your hangups, Matt. Jeez.
That's true. I'll just watch it until I'm comfortable. The next category is the attention. 0 to 5. You clearly have watched this movie a bunch. So
I've watched it twice in the last 2 months.
Exactly. That's a bunch to me.
Talk about it earlier. I keep finding little new things about it, but I can see how, like twice would be plenty for some people and once is enough for some people. So I would give it a 4 myself.
Yeah. Corey?
I'm going to go much lower. I'm going to go with a 2. Not because it was bad. It's just, it is long. It feels long. And
it's 2 hours and 15 minutes.
I wasn't in a hurry to rewatch it to get to the conversation today. It's not going into a favorites pile, but it is one of those things that's interesting enough that I'd pull it out, so to speak, and show it to other people.
Pull it out, look at it, show it to other people, take pictures.
Yeah, exactly. This is for your pleasure, not for mine.
I gave it a 1 simply based on your conversation and my mildly piqued interest to rewatch it to get more out of it. The last one we have is The Panic. Was it scary at all? 0 to 5.
Well, you've got it on your panic scale. Did the effects grab you? Were you surprised at all? Kept on the edge of your seat?
Yes.
The effects were fine. There were some surprises. I was not expecting him to be drinking through the comatose guy's IV tube like it's a straw.
Forgot about that.
So, did not keep me on the edge of my seat. You can kind of see where it's going based on the sort of person that Taeju is. So I would give it a 2.
Corey?
I'll go a little higher. I'll go 2.5. I think that what they did with the vampire stuff was good. I certainly felt a sense of terror when she became a vampire, when she was kind of stalking people and stuff. She brought the vampire across as a terrifying creature, whereas he brought across the despondent, romantic sort of aspect of vampirism. Yeah, exactly. And just in general, the scenes, the weird scenes with the wet bloated body during the sex stuff, that was just so surprising and utilized so well. I can't knock it for that. I think that was amazingly well done, because it creeped me out. It made me feel genuinely creeped out.
I give it a 0. And on that note, you can contact us by leaving us a voicemail at 805-328-3966. You can email us at pod@gncast.com. You can leave us messages on the website. Tell us what you like, what you don't like. Maybe you want something added. Maybe you want something done different. That's how you tell us. You can follow the show on Twitter, Instagram, and now we're on Facebook. Twitter and Instagram are at Podcast of Terror. Facebook, we're just Podcast of Terror. You can subscribe to the podcast via iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, any of your favorite podcatchers, and you can leave us feedback on whichever one you like. All subscription options and links can be found at gncast.com/subscribe. If you want to follow the entire Galactic Network on Facebook, that's under the Galactic Network. Nicole, thanks again for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Glad we got this rescheduled. Now, where can people find all of the things that you do?
Well, you can find me at my 9-to-5 job every day. You can find me running the Geek Cinema Society Facebook page at facebook.com/Geek Cinema Society. I write all the posts. I monitor it. So if anybody ever wants to chat about anything over there, they can. Or you can follow me personally on Twitter. And I tweet under @YourWordWiz, and that's YOURWORDWHIZ.
Awesome. Corey?
Wow, it's been a while since I've done this. Hey, you know what? I help my friend publish his comics, Levi Krause. You can find the works of Levi Krause and friends over at donutscomics.com.
Awesome. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Matt the Lifeguard. Thanks again for listening to another episode of the podcast here. We'll talk to you guys next week.